Hello and welcome to Random Fandom FC, the podcast about your team. Well, everyone's team actually, because each week we meet a new fan, learn how they fell in love with their team, their highest high, their lowest low, and anything else we should know. I'm Rob, an Arsenal fan living in the States, and I'll be your host. Regular listeners to the pod will have noticed that we started with the music this week. Well, after 10 episodes doing this, I had a little bit of feedback from some of the listeners that said, music's great, but start with it, and then just use the Who Are You clip later on to introduce this week's guest. So, you ask, and it happens. One little call to action before we get on with this week's show. Each week, it's quite difficult to infiltrate a new fan base. So if you're listening to this and you like it, please give us a share. Tell your mates down the pub. Let's see if we can grow the pod a bit. Now, in last week's episode, we were following England as we did a special episode for the international break. I had John come back on and we looked back over our history of supporting England, some of the trials and tribulations along the way, and some of our favourite tournaments and players. Now, right about now, I'd be doing a match report as I would have looked at the details of the game against Latvia and got a report ready for us. However, we have roving reporter Simon, the Lincoln fan, who's given us 2 Lincoln City match reports so far and was also at Wembley for the game against Latvia, and he's phoned us in another one. So I'm just going to go and have a sit down and maybe have a beer while you guys listen to Simon.
Full time at the England World Cup qualifying match and an expected win over a plucky and hard-working Latvian side. In truth, the Latvians probably should have scored the first goal in the first half. A confusion between the goalkeeper and the defence, leaving the Latvian striker with an open goal that he failed to hit. However, not long after that, R. James scored from a free kick for England and put England ahead. In the second half, started brightly for England. They did look a little bit like they weren't sure of exactly how to play it under the new manager. Some passes going astray. When they did finally connect them all together, Harry Kane managed to get a brilliant cross into the goal. It looked like that might be the end of the scoring, but on 76 minutes, Eze managed a wonderful piece of individual skill to score the final goal of the match and seal a deserved 3-0 win for England. Latvians hadn't given up and were still looking to try and get something from the match, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. A good game, a good result all round, and England proceed with the next qualifying match.
Thanks again, Simon, for that. That's brilliant. It's a hat-trick. You get to keep the match ball. Now, I doubt you're going to make it 4 match reports in a row, but who knows? Let's give you a fighting chance and find out who we're going to be meeting this week. So, who are you and who do you support?
I am David Stack and I am a Spurs fan.
I'm 10 episodes in. This is the 11th episode. It was always going to happen that I was going to come face-to-face with a Spurs fan. Well, full disclosure, I've come face-to-face with you before, because Dave, you're my old strike partner from the University of Reading days. The dynamic duo are back together.
That's a long time ago, Rob, but yeah, I think we scored a few goals between us and probably a few own goals as well while we're at it. But yeah, happy days.
Oh, yeah, it was happy days. We were just had John on last week talking about England and sort of reminiscing of Euro 96, and that was just taking me right back to those uni days. They were great days, and like you say, unfortunately, a few years ago now.
Yeah, still playing though. Rob, I don't know about you, but I'm still playing on a Monday night, 7-a-side.
Before I moved to the States, I'd kind of given up the 11-a-side version. I was playing 5-a-side and 7-a-side. And then when I moved here, I found an over-40s team, and it's full-on 11-a-side, Sunday morning kickoffs.
Fantastic.
I think back home, we didn't really have over-40s, so you had to carry on playing with like the 18-year-olds that want to play on a Sunday morning. You're like, oh my God, I can't keep up anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's all old farts, we've all got old together, so you still feel quick, even though probably if someone filmed us and played it back, we're probably all walking around the field, but there we are.
No, you're probably like Messi in the States though, aren't you? This England international player at States level. You're probably like a legend over there.
No, moving on. Right, so how Spurs, when did Dave discover Spurs?
I think, and I've thought about this, I think I was probably maybe 6 or 7 years old. My dad's a Spurs fan, and I remember him showing me this, what do you call it, like a program from one of the games he'd been to, and I think it was a Spurs Cup final from probably about 1960, late 1950s. And yeah, before you say it, probably the last cup final we won, probably the last trophy we've ever won. But I remember him showing me this program. It was in black and white. And on the front cover was basically a shot of one of the goals. and behind the goals, all the crowd, black and white, all wearing their kind of like basically suits in those days. And he was in the crowd, and he was literally in the middle of the goal, sort of cheering. And he's like, "That's me." And I was like, looking at this, I was like, "Wow, this is amazing!" Like, it's a 6 or 7 year old kid seeing his dad on a program at a football game. I thought this is just fantastic. And that was Spurs. And I mean, a bit like most kids do, you fall in love with the kit. You know, you like the kit or your local team, the reasons for supporting them, and it was just all there for me. It was my dad's team. I was from Essex, so Spurs were probably one of the closer teams to us, other than perhaps West Ham or maybe Arsenal, but that was never going to happen. So, yes, I suppose it was. Fell in love with the team, fell in love with the kit. Got my first kit when I was probably about 7 or 8, wore it for about 10 years, like you do at that age, and wore it every day, in and out of the house, and just fell in love with them. And at that point, they were actually pretty good. They used to win a few things, which was great. And then, yeah, it's just the last 3 decades where it's really fallen apart for us.
You just sparked a great kind of image in my head there of little Dave running around in his Spurs kit, and then a few years later, still running around in a little Spurs kit that doesn't really fit so well. But
Yeah, it's a bit tight fitting now. Yeah.
my brother-in-law's a Spurs fan, and his little lad named Harry, same thing, going through that same phase of like, will not leave the house unless he's wearing football kit. And I don't mean just the top, I mean full on football kit everywhere, shorts, shirt, socks, the lot. It's brilliant at that age. I love it. I just absolutely love kind of seeing them just all in on that.
I just remember it, and I had a Brazil kit as well, so I used to sort of alternate. And Brazil in the kind of early '80s, late '70s, early '80s were just awesome. So I used to kind of alternate between my Brazil kit and my Spurs kit, and that was me. That was like months worth of wear for me.
So sort of 6, 7 year old is when you kind of fell in love with the team. When do you really remember following them?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I've always, yeah, ever since that age, always followed them, but probably not to, didn't sort of, go to games or watch matches that religiously. But it's probably through my later teens, used to stay up to watch match of the day, or try and stay up. You wait till sort of 10, it came on at night, and then you fall asleep and you kind of miss the game that you're trying to watch. Because Spurs are always last, because the game's always boring, and Arsenal and Man United are always on first. So probably late teens through university, remember sporting them. And I would say it's probably not until my kids then got into football that we started actually going to the games a lot more. So I wanted to take them to the stadium, so they got a feel for kind of the buzz. And so I'd say it's probably once, my children came along, my oldest is 18 now, that we started going to more games, taking them along just for the experience, the atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, probably the last sort of 18 years or so, I've followed them a bit, more religiously and got more involved with the day to day.
Oh wow, okay. So that's kind of it's your fandom's grown over time then as well then.
Definitely, yeah.
So let's get this one out of the way. And I'm not, there's going to be no mocking on this end at all. I'll let you drive all of this. Lowest lows, you've probably got a couple to pick from. But which are the ones that you kind of look back and think, oh God.
Lowest lows. I mean, yeah, right. There's absolutely being a Spurs fan is hard work. It's a bit like being an England fan, actually. I've got the double combo, being an England fan and a Spurs fan, and both clubs have come so close so many times and not really won much. I don't know. England 1966, that's the last trophy. Spurs is I don't know, 2001, something like that, since we last won a trophy, or 2009 maybe. It's a long, long time ago anyway. Lowest lows, Spurs, probably the Champions League final. Probably the Champions League final, because we had such an amazing run to get to that final. We beat some amazing teams. I think we knocked out Man City in the quarterfinals. We had probably, when we come to it in a minute, the highest high was the game against Ajax in the semi-final, which was, we were on the verge of going out, and Mora just scored a hat trick. And literally, I remember dancing around the living room with my oldest, jumping up and down in joy. So that was the highest of the highest. To ride that wave into the Champions League final, and it was against Liverpool. So you just think, well, of all the teams we could have met, like the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids, the Bayerns, Liverpool, a team we play week in, week out, and have various success against. So yeah, going from a really great high semi-final, Champions League, and then just the way it unfolded was just, honestly, it just, even now I look back at that and think, I know I'm very biased, but I think we were robbed in that final. It's just really tough. A tough one to take, that was.
I'm going to be really honest here and say that penalty after 2 minutes,
Yeah.
that's one of those penalties where if you get it, you take it.
Yep.
But if it's given against you, you've been robbed
Yeah,
because it's never a penalty ever.
it could have gone. It could have gone either way. But even now, when you look back at it, and with the changes they made to handball rules, he had the ball blasted at him for about 3 yards, and it basically hit under his armpit, and his arms were down by his side, and he was looking the other way. In today's game, I don't think it would have been given, but it was given, and you just got to get on with it. Football's like that. You get on with it, and I think that disrupted the flow of the game because then Spurs had to go on the attack, and eventually conceded a second. But I would say at that moment in time, honestly, again, I know I'm going to be biased, but Spurs at that moment in time were the better team from Liverpool. But it's like one of those sliding door moments. Liverpool from that moment just went on and on and on and on and on and rose and rose and rose and won everything. And Spurs went the opposite way and just completely crumbled and then, yeah, fell apart from what could have been a really good moment. They eventually fired the manager 6 months later. Poch was one of the best managers we've ever had. Got us to the Champions League final with that team. And then 6 months later, he was fired. So, that was a real low for me from the heights down to the lows, all within 6 months.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was nuts how quickly they seemed to get rid of Poch after he got you to a final. That was like, well, here's your reward for getting to a final. Here's your
Yeah,
P45.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, he came out and he said, look, if we want to kick on from here, I need investment. And I think, he probably crossed swords with Daniel Levy at the time and just upset him. And Levy's got track history for firing managers. I mean, he fired Mourinho a week before the cup final.
Yes.
Mourinho gets us to a cup final. He's a serial winner. He's won more cup finals than most managers. He knows how to win finals, even with not particularly great teams. And Levy fires him a week before the final. And lo and behold, we're going to lose the final. So, yeah, I mean, that's a different topic, but that's what annoys about Spurs is we almost just, we just trip ourselves up all the time with these strange decisions.
Yeah, yeah. I know and I know it's difficult for me to appreciate this because Arsenal and Manchester United both had that ridiculous 20 plus
Yeah,
year single manager, right? Now, I don't think ever going to
yeah,
happen again,
yeah,
most likely across top flight football. So when you kind of see the amount of managers that have come in and out at Spurs, but I do feel like Spurs are a little bit more trigger happy. You have more of a manager
yeah.
merry-go-round than probably your average. And I'll put you in there. I'll call it the big six. You guys tend to
Yeah.
be getting rid of managers really quickly. There's no second chance.
Yeah, there isn't. I can't remember the exact numbers, but we've had like 20 managers in as many years. It's something ridiculous. And you see the problem now at Man United. You're spot on. When they had Ferguson at the helm, they won everything. Whereas since then, it's been a carousel of managers in, managers out, and they've been terrible. But even then, the only thing is, even then, even Man United and dare I say, even Arsenal, who haven't been anywhere near those heady heights of the Invincibles, you still pick up the odd trophy. You might just pick up like an FA Cup or a Carabao
Yeah,
Cup. You still pick
yeah.
up the odd trophy, even if they're not, the big ones. But we don't. we can't even win kind of the Tin Pot Cup. So yeah, it's been a long barren spell, but and I can't see it ending. Ange is in all sorts of problems at the moment. And I can't see it ending.
We'll come back round to the current crop in a minute. Let's try and bring you out. Let's try and lift you up. So let's go to
Bring
some
out my depression.
let's go to some highest highs then as you kind of think back. And like I said,
Yeah.
like we've said with previous fans that have come on, this doesn't have to be a cup win or it can even just be a particular favorite goal or anything. Just what's the thing that you kind of smile when you look back on and think, yeah, that was cool.
Highest highest high has got to be that Champions League Cup run. I think the game against Man City was just superb. They scored a last minute winner, I think, that was then disallowed. So we thought we were going out, and then Sterling, I think, scored. So we were going out, but then VAR overruled it. So we went through, which was great. And then we faced Ajax in the semis, and that was a really good Ajax team at the time. And I think they scored pretty quickly, so it looked doom and gloom. We were going home, and then Mora steps up and says, "No, hold my beer. Here I'm coming." And literally the last couple of minutes of the game, put the third goal past, scored his hat trick. Absolute phenomenal goal. And we went through. And then that's when it started to unwind though, because Moore just got a hat trick. Kane was injured, so didn't play in that game. And then for the Champions League final, you think, right, Moore was on a hat trick, he's buzzing, the whole team's buzzing, put him in, but Pop made the decision to put him on the subs bench and bring an unfit Harry Kane in, who did nothing. And that's, as decisions go, that's probably up there with one of the ones he's going to look back on and go, I regret doing that.
you look at that Champions League run, and I'm just looking at it here. The group, if you want to call it a group of death, you had
Yeah,
Barcelona, Inter
yeah,
Milan, and PSV Eindhoven in your group. I
exactly.
mean, and Barcelona strolled it. They absolutely decimated the group, and then
Yeah,
you were the best of the rest to get through, like you say, and then destroyed Borussia Dortmund 4-0 on
yeah.
aggregate, which is no mean feat. And then you say, like you say, City and Ajax all the way through to the finals. So
Exactly, and then lost to Liverpool. Of all the teams, it wouldn't be so bad if you lost to Real Madrid or Barcelona, or but to lose to one of your fellow countrymen, it's a tough one to take, and in the manner that we did so, as we spoke
hey,
about.
hey, hey, hang on a minute. We've gone back down into lowest low here. We're supposed to be
Sorry,
on
sorry.
high side.
I'm a Spurs fan. I haven't got many highs. I have to keep dragging myself down to the lows. Sorry, Rob.
I was just thinking, how did that happen? How did we end
Yeah,
up back down there
I'm
again?
like Eeyore. I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, because we look at, I think your last trophy was 2007, 2008, was it? League Cup beat Chelsea 2-1.
That sounds about right. Yeah, yeah.
There we are. You see, come on, you've got this. Surely that's burnt on your brain. You've got to have that there.
I've erased it from my memory. Yeah, yeah.
What about any like Gaza free kicks against Arsenal in FA Cup
That,
semi-finals or anything
yeah,
like
good
that? Do
point.
we?
I mean, that was an absolute classic one. Yeah, I mean, what a world free kick that was, and against Arsenal, you can't get better than that. But then I think he went off and did his cruciate ligament not long after that, so that was kind of a double-edged sword as well. But
Oh, Eeyores back.
yeah, he was back. But watching Gaza play, definite highlight, and also contentious one. But Gareth Bale, I would argue one of the best players ever to put on a Spurs shirt.
Well, this is a nice little segue because I was having a look at the players that you guys have had down the years, and I've always associated Spurs with, if I put my rivalry to one side, I've always associated you with at least having one or two kind of really flamboyant players, whether it's gone all the way back to Ozzy Ardiles. But if you look at kind of the players that have won your Player of the Year award down the years, then my eyes get drawn to Chris Waddle, Paul
Yeah,
Gascoigne, Gary Lineker, Dan
yeah,
Anderton, Jurgen Klinsmann, Teddy
yeah.
Sheringham. I'll say it the English way first. David Ginola or David Ginola. You got Robbie Keane, Berbatov, Modric, Gareth Bale, Christian Eriksen, Harry Kane. I mean, you've just had players that I think would walk into other top flight teams as well. Now, you haven't always had the rest of the team around them to
Yeah,
bring the
yeah,
best out of
yeah.
them, but you've always had those players.
We've
Always.
had, when you look back, we have had many world-class players, and some at the same time. But again, the challenge, without sounding like Eeyore again, the challenge with the club is it's run like a business. So when you got a player like Modric, absolutely phenomenal world-class player, he gets sold. He gets sold to a bigger club that can, pay more money for him. So off he goes to wherever he went, Real Madrid. Same with same with Bale, absolutely phenomenal player, but gets sold for, I don't know, 100 million euros, whatever he went for, to a bigger, better club. So as long as you're selling your best players, you're never gonna be up there. Had Levy or the manager at the time retained some of those players, we would have had one of the best teams in the world, and we would have won trophies. But it is unfortunately run like a business. It's run from a financial perspective. You sell things when they're at the most valuable. You buy them when they're cheap, which is what we're doing now. We're buying cheap young players, which no doubt will grow and flourish. But if history is to be repeated, they'll be sold in 2 or 3 years' time when they've got a couple of extra zeros on their value. So it's a challenge. But yeah, fantastic players. Gascoigne, one of my favourite, really untypical English player, flamboyant, fantastic. Bale, the fastest thing I've ever seen on two legs, absolutely destroying teams, shot like nobody else, just a phenomenal player.
I was just going to say that I've been lucky enough to see in the flesh both Gareth Bale and Thierry Henry, and both of those two shared something to me that made me kind of sit up and take notice, which is okay. You can get people who are quick. Usain Bolt is quick, but somebody who doesn't seem to lose any pace while they're dribbling with the ball as
Yeah,
well is insane. Probably Mbappe, not really showing it at the moment with Madrid, but definitely in that World Cup with
yeah,
France was doing it
yeah.
as well. There's just no
No,
deceleration while they're dribbling with
no,
the ball. Um, Absolutely phenomenal. If you can sprint at speed and keep tight control of a
yeah,
ball, you are very dangerous. I mean,
absolutely. A bit like us in our uni days, Rob, you have to say.
yeah, only if they filmed it and then sped the film at times two. Uh, but yeah, so when you kind of look at that list, then is it Bale? Is it Gaza? Who's your favorite player of yesteryear as you've been supporting Spurs?
No, honestly, there are so many to choose on. We haven't even mentioned Harry Kane. I know he's not a yesteryear player, but he's left us now. But I've got to go with Bow, I think, because of exactly that. His speed, his agility, his power, his free kicks. Honestly, I can't remember the team he was playing against. I think it might have been Milan actually in one of the European Cups. Two free kicks, two goals from like about 30 yards out. It was unbelievable. Just a pure talent. And then he goes somewhere like Real Madrid, scores overhead kicks in the Champions League final, and he spends most of his time on the bench because they think he's not good enough or he has an argument. I just don't get it. But he for me was probably the most exciting player to watch because just that pace, that intensity.
So be honest with me. When Harry Redknapp, I think it was Harry Redknapp, if I get this right, when he decided to shift him from left back to left wing,
Yeah,
did you have any? Was there any kind of chatter amongst the Spurs fan that this kid was good but being played out of his wrong position? Because he was a left back, wasn't he, for a while? He had some awful stat that
yeah.
every game he'd started for Spurs, you'd lost or something
Went one.
stupid like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, he was. I think he came to us from Southampton. I think Southampton's academy, young lad. We've got quite a few from Southampton. Came for us left back, good left back. But what to be fair, was playing a bit like a wing back, so would bomb up the pitch. And clearly Redknapp saw something in that. I don't think I saw that coming. I would never have said, no, this guy's a winger. This guy's going to score us, 20 goals a season. So when he moved him, it was a bit like, I can see why he's done it because of the pace. But then after two or three games, you think, wow, okay, Redknapp knows, or whoever it was, knows what he's doing, and this guy's phenomenal. And that's what set his light, his world alight. But failing that, I think he would have been like a Kyle Walker. He would have been like a winger that's got pace that would have gone up the wings and put crosses in. But moving him up a couple of pegs, I think, just unleashed his true potential, which was just phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, even for me, I can acknowledge that he was an absolutely phenomenal player for you guys.
Yeah.
I never really understood why he kind of went through a period where he was sort of the number one at Real Madrid, or he was getting the sort of the attraction, and it just seemed like something happened where I don't know whether he's clashing with Ronaldo and there wasn't enough room for two of them, but
I heard that he clashed with Zinedine Zidane. I think he had kind of a bit of fallout with him at some point and got benched. So even in the Champions League final where he scored, I think only came on as a sub late on in the game. So I think he just had a fallout, and then he doesn't help himself when he wears those kind of t-shirts that says, I'm not sure what it says. Was it like golf,
Wales
Wales,
golf, yeah.
Real Madrid in that order or something like that, isn't it? So it's like they're probably not helping yourself when you do those, but yeah, just phenomenal athlete.
As we start looking at the current crop, then before we start looking ahead to the game that we're going to predict and take a look at, who's your favourite right now in the current lineup? Who gets you excited in the current Spurs lineup?
That's a real hard one. That's a real hard one. When you look at teams that we have had against the team we've got now, it's really hard to say. Son, I love Son, but he's gone off the boil. He's not the player he was sort of even 2 or 3 seasons ago.
It does seem like Father Time's catching up with him a little bit.
Yeah,
It only takes a player like that just to lose half a yard of pace,
exactly.
and it's just so
Yeah,
noticeable in the
it,
Premier
it's
League. The moment you're just slightly off it, you don't see those goals anymore on the replays where he's sent away from the halfway line and
yeah,
skins everybody. I was always scared to death of Son going up against any of our
yeah,
fullbacks
yeah,
because I always knew he was going to score. He was going to cut in, he
yeah,
was going to do that curler to the far post.
yeah.
Um, just seems to have lost that yard of pace.
He has, and unfortunately, that was a big part of his game. So I love him to bits, but he doesn't really do it for me. We've got some young lads coming through, and I think, we've got a lot of young players coming through. And again, if we hold on to them and we don't sell them, I think probably Spurs in maybe 2 or 3 years' time could be a real team. We've got the likes of Bergvall as a Swedish international, sits in the middle. Seen him play a few times now, live and just a phenomenal player. Got Archie Gray, who's literally played in every single position to cover all other injuries. He's a great player. We've got Mikey Moore, who's sort of one of our wingers, absolutely phenomenal player. There's a good squad of young players coming through. So I'd probably say right now the one I see the most, probably Bergvall. I think he gets on the ball. He's got a good engine on him. He's not afraid to tackle. He sticks a foot in. A lot of energy. Needs a bit of help, a bit of coaching, a bit of positional awareness. But I think he'll be a great player.
One of the kind of the big frustrations that my brother-in-law has with the Spurs this year is whether it's the training or the high line that Ange forces on them. You seem to have a ridiculous number of hamstring or muscular issues this year, where you've had like most of your team out for big chunks of time, and everyone's saying it's because Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy watching Spurs play sometimes. He's taken Kevin Keegan's Newcastle to the next level of like, right, I want all 11 players in the opposition's half at some point. Yeah, keeper, you get up there as well. Oh, if they win it, we'll just sprint back. Don't worry.
It is absolute suicide football at its finest. It's just crazy. I think for the first 10 games of Ange's charge, it was brilliant because it was entertaining. We were scoring, we were top of the league. He won Manager of the Month kind of 3 or 4 times in a row, and it was like, wow, Spurs are going to win the league. It was brilliant. And then slowly but surely, the more astute tactical managers, the Artetas of the world, sussed him out and said, well, look, if their whole team's bombing forwards, this is what we need to do to play around them and get around them. And it just came crashing down. The injuries happened. I'm not sure that's as a result of his tactics or his style of play, because these are professional athletes. They're well trained. They're well, they do a bit of stretching. It's not like a pub football team that goes out and plays 90 minutes of football without stretching. They are massaged. They've got physios. They're well looked after. So I don't buy that it's down to the tactic. I think you look at a lot of teams in the Premier League, and there are a lot of injuries across a lot of teams. So I think Spurs have probably had more than most, but I can't see it being part of the tactic. The human body's designed to be able to sprint. I don't buy that, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't buy that.
No, that's fair. I mean, so I keep referring to him as a brother-in-law. I'm going to give him a shout out. So Dean, if you're listening, he went through a period probably about 10 games ago where he was absolutely on board we're getting relegated if we don't sack Ange train. Like, he was all in. And I kind of said to him back then, I said, look, even if you are that rubbish at the moment, you are never getting relegated this season, because there is no way that the 3 teams at the bottom are going to put a run together. I even said back then, I said, I think Spurs were on 29 points at the time. I said, I'll make you a bet that Spurs could pack up, go home, not play again this season, and 29 points will be enough to be safe this year.
Yeah.
He's like, no way. I'm like, well, here we are now, 29 games played in the Premier League, and Ipswich are the top 1 out of the bottom 3, and they're on 17. You're safe, which is much to his distress, because he thinks that means Angel might stay around for the new season. What's your view of what are you looking forward to in the summer?
I think we're safe. But you said about 40 points, didn't they, to be safe? And I think we're safe. And the bottom 3 are so bad that, and we're playing one of them in a couple of weeks, as you said. So we should do well there. But they are so bad. I think we're safe. I think we're in the Europa Cup still. I think that will be the decider as to what happens to Ange. I think if we lose to, and in fact, I'm going to watch the game on April the 10th, I think it is, against Frankfurt. I think if we lose the 2 legs of that, I think it will possibly be the end of Ange. I think most fans will have lost it by then. I think Levy will be under pressure to remove him on because it's clearly not working.
Yeah.
But then that's the old adage of Spurs, is that we've got to give managers time. A bit like Arteta at Arsenal. He's been there 5 or 6 years. You're giving him time to bed in, and long may that continue. By the way, keep him there as long as he's not winning trophies. Keep him there. I'll be happy.
I was asked this the other day about, like, does it drive you nuts that you keep missing out on the title? I was like, no, because what drove me nuts more was being in 8th and wondering if we might qualify for the conference final. I would rather be in the title hunt each year and bottle it than not be in the conversation at all.
You almost guarantee Champions League. Arteta knows what he's doing. He's got the team well oiled. You can see the tactics. You can see they're all playing for him. Yeah, you might not win the Champions League or the Premier League every year, but you've got to be there or there or close. Whereas Spurs, you watch them play, and I can't even work out what formation they're playing. They don't even know what formation they're playing. And you see the players bomb up the pitch and not come back. And we all know that our right back Porro's, isolated and vulnerable. So all the teams play down that channel. We as spectators can see what's going on, and we can see where the problems are, and they're just not fixed. And Ange appears to be so adamant and arrogant that it's his way or the highway that he's not changing anything. So he constantly plays the same tactic every time. And even the likes of Southampton, Ipswich, Leicester, teams that are in the bottom part of the league, they've all beaten us or taken points off of us because he just can't adapt his tactics to break down teams that just play a low block or whatever they do.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough.
What do you make of looking at what's going on at Forest this year? When you look at you had Nuno at your club. Now, was he the case of a right man at the wrong time? Because when you look at what he's done with Forest, he's got a group of players and they're outperforming. What's the old phrase? Some of the parts is more than the individuals.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
feels like that's the kind of manager Spurs actually need. Because, like you say, you keep bringing all this youth through. You want to get them in, get their value up, sell them, bring the next wave of youth through behind them, and keep a couple of star players to keep them
yeah,
going. So it felt like it was all set up for the Nuno way. But is it true it was more
yeah.
his style of play that was probably causing the backlash? Because it wasn't, in inverted commas, the Spurs way.
I honestly don't know what happened there, if I'm honest. He wasn't there long enough for me to form an opinion, but it was kind of like he was in, then he was out. It was like, well, what's going on? Yet another manager goes. And then we had the whole Conte, Mourinho sort of debacles. But I think he fired Conte when we were like fifth in the league. We were fifth in the league and he'd not spent a penny, and he fires the guy. Obviously, he was quite vocal. He came out and kind of, said a few bad words about the team. So, you've got to go after that. But here we are in whatever we are now, 14th or 15th, and the manager's still there. And I think the only thing keeping him there is that Europa Cup final dream. And once that's
Yeah.
over, if Nuno can do it at Nottingham Forest with a team that most people were backing to be relegated, and he's got them firing and working, and they've got no real superstars in that team. They've got the Chris Woods of the world that banging in goals for fun. They've got the defence sorted, but there's no household names, I would say, before this season started. And here we are. They're challenging the best of them. They're giving Arsenal a good run for their money. So it's
They are. They are. They're sitting at the moment in. I mean, if you told me that Forest were going to be third,
yeah,
29 games into the season, 4 points behind Arsenal and 5 points ahead of Chelsea and 6 ahead of Man City, I'd have told you what you're smoking.
exactly. And that was a team that most tipped to be relegated this year.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and here they are.
Perfect segue. Talking of teams tipped to be relegated, and I'm pretty sure the calculators will be coming out soon to work out when it's going to happen. But Southampton currently sit at the
Yeah.
bottom on 9 points. You're going to be the second team that have played Southampton where we've predicted scores because John, it was Liverpool playing Southampton, and now Tottenham are going to be playing Southampton. It's at home. I know you've said the bottom teams are taking points off. Got to be feeling confident about home match against Southampton. You're shaking your head. You're not, are you?
I'm not. I am honestly not, because not once this season have I seen Spurs rock up and just totally destroy a team. Well, sorry, Man City, I think we completely rolled, and that's the frustrating thing. We can roll teams over like Man City, absolutely destroy them, and then go and lose the following week to a bottom half team and just look completely a shambles. I think we'll lose to Southampton
At home.
at home. My head, I guess my football brain is saying there's nowhere a team like Spurs should lose to Southampton. Player for player, pound for pound, Spurs should be winning that 3-0 at least. But I'm going to go with the 2-0 Southampton victory.
Yeah, well, I was just looking to see how you got on in the reverse fixture, and shock horror, you actually
Yeah.
did. I just found it here. 5-0 you beat them at their place back in, I don't know, I can't even see the date here. So Madison scored a couple, Son got one, Kulusevski and Sarr. 5-0.
Yeah.
You've got to be looking at, I don't think you're going to repeat that. I think Southampton will score against you. They've lost their last 5 in a row and they tend to score a goal in each one. I'm going to say 3-1 Spurs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I curse you, I promise I won't smile.
Definitely more optimistic than me. I hope it is. I hope it is, because then we go on to hopefully victory in Europe and everything. The world's a rosy place. But from a better man, I think lose to Southampton, we'll lose to Frankfurt in the Europa League, and then Andrew will be fired, and then the whole merry-go-round of who's next in the Spurs hot seat will start again.
Oh man. Well, time is upon us. So, oh my gosh, I knew this was a risk when I started this podcast, but I'm going to have to keep an eye out on the Spurs result now. I won't go as far as say I'm going to support them, but I will be wanting to see that I got my prediction right. So, thank you so much for coming on doing this, Dave. It's been brilliant catching up with you again.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's been brilliant, been absolutely brilliant, and good luck to your podcast, Rob.
Oh well, thanks. And if you happen to be out and about amongst your Spurs brethren, then please pass the pod, and because it's quite the challenge to infiltrate a different fan base every single week.
Excellent. I will put it on my Spurs Facebook group that I'm a member of, and they can all listen to me ramble on and then give me abuse afterwards and tell me how wrong I am, and they want Ange to stay.
Perfect. Well, thanks again. Cheers, Dave.
You're very welcome. Cheers, Rob.